welcome to The Married Therapist,
a relationship podcast
hosted by us, Luis and Amber Simide.
This podcast is all about love, conflict, and the gray areas.
If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe wherever you're listening. Now let's get to the show. Welcome back. So communication is one of those things that people just struggle with, right? So whether it is couples or family or friends, people just tend to struggle with communication. So we're going to talk about it. Amber and I have been working as therapists for years, and we've seen a lot of communication challenges throughout the years, whether it's in our sessions or on social media or just in our daily life. And so jumping right in, one of the main things that I see is people not really feeling heard. Right. So people are talking, they're communicating what they're feeling, and they leave that conversation just not feeling like the other person is really hearing them. Right. They're just trying to offer these solutions. And so what do you say to people that are struggling with that?
The first thing that I would say is let the person know, hey, when I said what I said on this day, I felt like you maybe were dismissive, you were invalidating, or you just came up with solutions. And that's not really what I needed in that moment. I really wanted maybe validation and empathy, or maybe they did want solutions, but before jumping into that, they wanted the person to just give them a hug and look them in the eyes and really just kind of hold space for the moment that's happening. As much as we know and love our partners, they're not a mind reader. So I know the whole topic is communication. And so my feedback would be to communicate. I would say when you go back to your partner, make sure you have time. If you can, put the phones away.
Yeah.
Look them in the eye. I wouldn't do this over text.
Yeah.
Because that can be misconstrued, as we all know.
Yeah.
Make sure you guys are both fed. You've got food in your stomach. Nobody's sleepy. There's a lot of factors when it comes to life. So if you can, I would just try to minimize any of those distractions. So that way the person can fully understand where you're coming from. I'm a huge fan of using buzzwords, not to manipulate, but to communicate your message. So if there's a way that you can paint a picture that is maybe something they've never thought of before, just to let them know the gravity of the situation, I think that could be helpful. And they could see, oh, my bad. Okay, so I did do that, or I didn't do that. Okay, good to know.
So, yes, so I agree with that. So you had mentioned offering validation and empathy. Can you give an example of what that looks like and what often happens instead?
Yeah, an example would be someone saying, I had a really tough day at work. I had way more projects than I thought I would have. I wasn't able to take a lunch. I wasn't able to say hi to my best friend at work. And I just felt I was drowning all day. Oh, wow. I'm so sorry you had such a heavy day. I can only imagine how that was to walk into work expecting one thing and experience another. That sounds really heavy, and I'm so sorry that happened. What you're doing is you're reflecting back what that person said, and you're expressing empathy and compassion. We're not fixing anything. We're just kind of sitting there. You know, they talk about having a little pity party or misery loves company. It's kind of like that.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that goes a long way. What happens so often is the person goes into solution mode and they say, oh, well, at least you weren't as busy as you were last quarter. Or, oh, well, you didn't see your friend today, but maybe you'll see her tomorrow. Or at least you weren't sitting in traffic too. So they're trying to cheer you up. They're trying to get you to see the bright side, but sometimes that's not helpful. Sometimes it is. So that's another conversation, but it's just about giving the person what they need in that moment.
Yeah, there was a really funny commercial back in the day where I don't even know what this commercial was about or what it was for, but I remember it because the illustration that they provided was so strong. So there is this woman and she had a board nailed to her head and she was telling her husband, I have this like raging headache. I don't know what's going on. My head just hurts so bad. And he's just like, you have a board in your head. And she's like, you're not listening to me. I'm just hurting really bad. He's like, take the board out of your head. So it's like this back and forth, right? Where he's offering the solution, right? Take the board out of her head. And she just wants him to validate her emotion, right? Just be like, I'm so sorry. That sounds really difficult, right? And the thing about that is the solutions are typically good, right? They're typically good solutions that would make things better. But like you said, that's not what they need in that moment, right? So yeah, it is a skill that a lot of people have to learn. And it's something that a lot of times I feel like a lot of guys do, right? Where they want to be the fixer. They don't like to feel uncomfortable because they want to be that fixer, right? And so when their partner is not quote unquote fixed, they are uncomfortable and they're just like, I don't know what to do with this. Feel better because I don't know how to handle your emotions, right? But yeah, I think it's important to just validate that emotion and just be like, yeah, I'm sorry that sounds really tough. Because and that feels like you're not doing anything. It feels like I should be doing more. Like I'm just saying things, but it's like, no, that really does help. And be genuine with it. Like, right, you're not gonna want to be sarcastic or anything like that, because that can be a whole different thing. And also kind of how you mentioned just repeating back. You're not repeating back verbatim what they said because that gets annoying. That was something that in grad school, as we were learning just like reflective skills, some people would get caught up with just like repeating what someone said, and it's just like that's not helpful. Just like you're mocking me. Like what are
Yeah,
you doing?
that would piss 'em off.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, reflecting back and presenting the emotion that they might be feeling helps them feel heard.
And you have eyes. So you know your partner.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what's happening in front of you.
Mm-hmm.
Are they kind of breathing heavy? Are they rolling their eyes? Are they getting tearful?
Mm-hmm.
Do they just seem really spent?
Mm-hmm.
Sit with that.
Yeah.
Wow, I could see that this is really, really weighing on you. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
so sorry.
Yeah.
I love you. Hug. And I want to echo the fact that it does feel so empty. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what the hell is this even doing?
Yeah.
But it does so much
Mm-hmm.
because the other person feels seen and heard. Like, yeah, it was a shitty day. Like, thank you so much. I missed talking to my girlfriend. I really thought I would have 5 projects and I ended up having 10. That sucks.
Mm-hmm.
It goes so far.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that's something that you and I wouldn't say struggled with, but we had some challenges with at the beginning of our relationship because again, we're both therapists, so we are working with people on solutions all day every day. And so whenever we would see each other and we had a bad day at work, one of us would oftentimes go into that solution mode. And you were the one that brought it up one time. You were just like, that's actually not helpful. I just want you to be sad with me, you know? And or I want you to be like, just validate my emotions. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm so sorry. Yeah, that sounds really, And so I started to get that, but it was this kind of switch that we had to flip in ourselves. And vice versa. Sometimes you would do the same thing for me. I wouldn't say as often as I did, but you did. Yeah. And so we did have to start asking each other, do you want solutions right now or are you wanting to just be heard? Right. So just kind of set the expectation of what they're wanting and needing in that moment. And so that helped the conversations and it helped us get our needs met. And so yeah, I would encourage anyone who's having trouble with that. Again, typically the guy, but sometimes the woman too, or whoever in the relationship who tends to be the fixer, to ask that question and see what your partner really needs.
And you're really good at that.
Thank you.
And you just say, how can I best support you?
Hmm.
In case people are wondering, I'm not going to remember that. How can I best support you?
Yeah. What do you need right now?
Yeah, well, exactly. And you have mentioned that in the past, and I haven't had the answer
Hmm.
because I was just flooded with emotions. And that's okay too.
Hmm.
If you do wind up asking your partner that and they don't give you this perfect, clear answer,
Yeah.
it's like, okay, well, you asked, and then you just kind of go for the ride and kind of see what's happening and maybe do a little bit of both, a little
Hmm.
empathizing, a little validating, a little solution focus and see kind of what sticks just in case people like, hey, it didn't work.
Yeah. And a lot of times you can get defensive, right? So if you're offering solutions, good solutions at that, and the other person doesn't take them or isn't wanting them right then and there, you can get defensive. It's like, well, what do you want from me? Like, I'm trying to help you out, and it's like, what? That's not. Why are we getting mad at me for being sad?
Right.
And it's just like, again, it's that pride that comes up that you want to be able to fix it, and you're uncomfortable with sitting in those emotions, so you want to fix it, and it's like, no, like just sit with them, because that's part of a partnership, to carry each other's emotions sometimes, because it's a lot to carry on your own, right? So being able to sit with your partner and just like commiserate with them sometimes. Now, you don't want to do that all day, every day, right? There is a time for solutions, but you can allow that your partner to lead that conversation of like when they want solutions and when they need solutions. And the onus is on you too, as the person, quote unquote, complaining or sharing what you were going through, to seek those solutions out, right? Like, you don't want to just like be in your pity party all day. At a certain point, you have to be like, okay, I need help with this. Like, how do I get through this? Right? Instead of just kind of sitting in it and then letting every day kind of go that way.
And sometimes maybe talking in general is just too much for both people. Let's shake up the environment.
Mhm.
So I know on Love is Blind with Ashley and Alex, he was like, hey, you want me to order you McDonald's?
Oh my gosh.
The way Ashley immediately was like, yes, that's what she needed. She needed to eat. So I'm thinking, grab her a snack.
Yeah.
Grab him a snack. Grab a blanket. Say, let's pause this conversation. Let's jump in the car and look at the sunset.
Yeah.
Let's talk about something else. Let's put on some good music, our favorite comfort show.
Hmm.
Maybe then, once things settle, you can actually communicate.
Yeah.
I think that's a big issue. People kind of just jumping right into it, whether it's the person going through it, like, I have to talk about everything, or the person on the receiving end, I have to save the day, or I have to validate perfectly. It's just like,
Hmm.
hold on. We both just worked 8+ hour shift.
Yeah.
Did we eat dinner?
Yeah. Yeah. And as the person who has all of these things to talk about, like you said, it is good to just kind of take a beat, formulate your thoughts, because you can just start word vomiting all over the person. And it's like, I don't know where to take this. And so it is good to just kind of sit with it, try to understand what you're feeling and just how to communicate that effectively. And like you said, sometimes it's not right then and there, right? Sometimes we get home and we're just tired and we just like, I don't want to talk right now. Let's just watch a show. Like, okay, cool. And then maybe when we get in bed, then we talk about something, right? Or, I know before we've like gone on walks, right? Like, let's just go on a walk and then we can talk while we're out, right? We don't want to jump into things right away because, again, it's work, right? It is work to validate and empathize and communicate all these things. So if you're just tired from work, give yourself a break. It's okay.
Or take a shower.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
my answer to everything.
Yeah.
Personally, and then for you, anytime you come home and it's a long day, I'm like, why don't you just jump in the shower? Just relax.
Yeah, because I tend to kind of stay in go mode until it's time to sit. And you can tell that I'm like frazzled or I'm just like worked up from work. And you're just like, just go take a shower. And I'm like, no, you're right. I need to go just chill out. And it's always really helpful. And when you were talking about just getting a snack, I was I was like laughing because so often that's just kinda like what you need. Like, you're just kinda irritable because you just want like a treat, right? And so I get you like, ice cream or something. You're just like, I'm all better.
Literally. What a concept. Today, actually,
Oh yeah.
I was whining and we were just talking about finances and not really even anything that's super intense,
Yeah.
but I just worked all day and now that I'm on this GLP-1, I'm not really hungry. And so I was like, "Meow." And I was like, girl, you haven't eaten all day. And I did a protein shake and I did electrolytes, but I didn't have solid food all day. And I was like, okay, we need something. You were getting ready to make dinner, so I didn't want to have anything big. I had string cheese and I immediately felt better. It's like, wow. And then I went back to you and I apologized. I said, I am so sorry for whining. I just needed something in my system.
Yeah. So sometimes you have to help yourself out. But also, if your person is coming to you with some grievances, it is helpful to just sometimes validate the emotion, empathize with them, and it really does go a long way.
And something else we see a lot is when someone's unresolved or unprocessed childhood trauma finds its way into their relationship or their marriage.
Yes. Hmm.
So that's why it's important to go to individual therapy to
Yes.
understand maybe some of your triggers or some of your patterns, things like that. Or just do some self discovery.
Hmm.
Read some books, as I like to say, listen to some podcasts, or just kind of notice maybe in shows or music certain themes that kind of resonate with you. Because if we don't know who we are, we're not going to be able to be our best self
Hmm.
in our relationship. We're not going to show up as our highest version. And so sometimes it's really not about the toothpaste. It's not about the toilet seat or any other thing that may be frivolous or surface level,
Hmm.
but it's really about what that represents. Maybe it's that you don't feel like that person cares for you.
Hmm.
You always wanted that. Maybe you didn't have that growing up, whether it's childhood or even just kind of early adulthood. So then when you finally get with your person, you put everything on them.
Yeah.
And the moment they fail or they don't rise to the occasion, you're irritable
Mhm.
and wildly dysregulated.
Yeah.
And that person could say, "Oh, I'm walking on eggshells. I can never be enough."
Hmm.
So having that introspection, having that awareness is really important. And I'm not saying you have to show up to the plate 100% because 100% equates to perfection and none of
Right.
us are perfect. What I am saying is on some level, know who you are
Hmm.
and hold yourself accountable.
Yeah.
And if your partner mentions certain things, don't be defensive. Don't be so quick to have a rebuttal, but maybe sit with that
Hmm.
and try to figure that out so you can show up in a healthier way.
Yeah, and we had talked about triggers a couple episodes ago, and this is one of those things where these triggers are things that you really need to work on as an individual, right? Because like you said, it's a lot of it has to do with your childhood, right? So an example that I've seen so many times is just not feeling good enough, right? So they grow up in this household where they are constantly criticized, they never felt good enough. And so whenever they get into a relationship, and their partner just corrects them on one small thing, they receive that as I'm not good enough. Right. And so I always like to tell people that there are things that people say, and there are things that we hear. Right. So they might have said, "Hey, can you pick up your shoes off the floor?" And what you heard was, "You're messy. You don't know how to be responsible." Right. So this is the message that you're repeating in your head. And that's not what they said at all. Right. But that's the messaging you're receiving. And you have a larger reaction than what that warrants, right? So that your partner doesn't know you're having a reaction to that. They think you're reacting to them telling you to put your shoes away. And it's like, what the heck? Why are you getting so mad? And I just told you to put your shoes away. And then if you're not aware, you might not even know like why you're getting so mad. And so you try to rationalize it. It's like, well, you're always telling me to put my stuff away. And it's like, I really don't. So it's hard to know how to communicate well about what you're going through if you don't know that about yourself, right? So, like you said, individual therapy, so helpful for that, just to figure out who you are and how your childhood has impacted who you are today. And a lot of people like to say, "Oh, leave the past in the past." And on the one hand, I get that, right? Like you don't want to dwell in the past, but the reality is the past does impact your current living situation. It impacts how you operate, impacts how you view things. So it is important to go back there just to kind of see where it came from and then get to today and see, okay, that happened then. That's not what's happening now. How can I respond differently to a situation that's reminding me of that back then? Right.
Yeah. And it's a journey.
Mm-hmm.
Someone hearing this may think, "Oh, how would I ever figure all of that out?" Especially if they don't have access to therapy for
Mm-hmm.
whatever reason. So I would say sit with yourself, maybe journal,
Mm-hmm.
maybe go on a drive or go on a walk and start to kind of do a float back of how things were growing up, what are some core beliefs that you may not even be aware of? What was something that really just stood out to you? Was there a defining moment? Or maybe there wasn't a defining moment, but it's just kind of an overall feeling that we don't get good things in this household,
Yeah.
or this family is cursed, or people will always use and abuse you. That's just the way that life is. Sometimes our families tell us these things directly, and other times it's kind of more indirectly. So sometimes you don't have someone who could sit down with you and tell you these things. So
Right.
you kind of have to find that within. That being said, maybe you can talk to a childhood friend if you have that, or if it is safe and it makes sense, maybe talking to some family members about things. Like, what's something that our family is known for regarding a belief system? Oh, well, as an example, we Murphys, we have to work twice as hard to get half as much. That's a very common phrase in the Black community.
Yeah.
And so maybe over time, you're not even consciously aware that that has become a core belief. So maybe that's why you're working so hard in your corporate job
Yeah.
at the expense of your relationship. So understanding, oh, okay. I mean, I want to grow, I want to move up, but you know what? It's really negatively impacting my marriage. And so let me go ahead and reevaluate things. So it can be a journey, and it would be well worth taking.
Yeah, for sure.
Just knowing, again, what it's actually doing day to day in your relationship.
Yeah, and once you start to figure that out, the onus is on you to communicate that to your partner. Like, "Hey, I'm realizing I communicate this way because when I was a kid, this is how things presented, and so I'm really just actually reacting to this." Now, as the partner, that's not your cue to just be like, "Well, you need to work on that, and I'm gonna keep doing what I do," right? So, for example, if their trigger or if their core belief was I'm not good enough, right? When you are telling them to do something, right? Just adding a little extra like, hey, I know you're trying really hard, but can you just pick this up? Right. So like just validating that you see the good parts of their life too, because you know that they tend to stick to the bad parts, right? That the bad parts are what really speaks to them. And so it's important for you as a partner to just support them in that way. Now, again, the onus is on your partner to heal that part of themselves. But as a partner, like we mentioned in the trigger episode, you can support them in that healing process. And the last thing we want to talk about is conflict avoidance. This is a huge thing, not only in couples, but also in family dynamics where people just have this huge aversion to conflict where they just kind of sweep it under the rug, right? Which it doesn't go anywhere. It's just under the rug. It's going to come out eventually. I always tell the kids that I work with, it's like just putting stuff under your bed. Eventually, you can't fit any more under there, and things are going to start popping out everywhere, right? And so that's kind of like it is with conflict, right? You can only hide it for so long. It's going to start popping up in other ways. So, can you give some examples of why do you think that people tend to avoid conflict?
A lot of times it stems from childhood. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah.
Why is that? Well, if a conflict avoidant grew up in a household where there was a lot of fighting, that's scary. As a kid, you don't really know what's going on. You're in survival mode, so you do whatever you have to do. And that kiddo could grow up to become an adult who's in a relationship and they say, you know what, I'm not going to fight. I do not want to deal with what I went through. If I have kids, like I don't want my kids to go through what I went through. So I'm going to do the exact opposite. I'm going to do a 180 and just shut down.
Yeah.
And it makes sense for their brain. Is it healthy? No, because they're with someone who's like, hello. Another thing is people may not have the language for what they're feeling.
Yeah.
Their partner's asking them, tell me your thoughts. Tell me what's going on. They do not know what to say. Maybe for them, the natural instinct is to just blow up
Yeah.
and start going below the belt or start talking about the 45 things that happened previously. And so for them, they're like, you know what? I'm just not even going to say anything.
Yeah.
I'm just going to say I'm fine,
Hmm.
or I don't want to talk about it, and then kind of repress it. Like you said, that's not helpful because that stuff is just going to pop out. And I always say, if you don't deal with your emotions will deal with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
So what happens sometimes, like let's say in your relationship, if you're chronically a conflict avoidant, you go to work and a little thing happens and then you blow up. You have
Mhm.
a large emotional reaction to a tiny issue.
Yeah.
And then you can wind up getting written up or getting fired. And your boss and your coworkers may look at you like, why did you just lose it in that meeting?
Hmm.
It wasn't about whatever the meeting was. It was the fact that you have all of this stuff pent up
Yeah.
in your body and it needed an outlet. So that's when it decided to come out. Why? You were triggered. Again, if you have not checked out our trigger episode, please listen to it. But you were triggered. The
Hmm.
sight, sound, smell, some kind of external stimuli reminded you of that.
Hmm. Yeah. I like to give an example of like we're all just like a glass of water. Like every day, it's constantly being filled with water, right? And if we're not regulating our emotions throughout the day, if we're not talking about the things that we need to talk about, and we're just kind of letting those emotions pile up, before long it gets to the brim, right? And it takes one drop to make it overflow, right? So again, like you said, it's just one small thing, but because of all the other things underneath it, it just gets all over the place. And it's like, what is even happening? We weren't dealing with your stuff, right? And so it happens all the time. We see it all the time. And, it's common, right, for people to have these blow ups at night because they had the full day of things happening, right? After you finish work, after you finish school, because you've had a full day of stress happening in your life and you're not dealing with your stuff. And yeah, it just takes the one small thing, you stub your toe, and then all of a sudden you're kicking the dog. And it's like, what is happening right now? Right. And so, yeah, you just deal with your stuff, talk about what you're going through, talk about things that have happened throughout the day, because it's going to come out one way or the other. And as you were talking about the conflict avoidant person, yeah, I think sometimes people can just avoid conflict, but I think sometimes people can avoid it not necessarily by intentionally avoiding it, but by appeasing the other person.
I was just getting ready to talk about that because
Yes.
that's a trauma response spawning.
Yeah, fawning, right? Where you're just meeting the other person's needs, try not to rock the boat, right? Try not to just trying to keep the peace. And while that may look good on the surface, it's my therapist told me this a while back, and it's so good because when you're, quote unquote avoiding conflict, you're not avoiding the conflict, you're just placing all the conflict within yourself, right? So the conflict is still happening, but the other person isn't dealing with it. You're dealing with it all by yourself, right? So instead of doing that, you can actually address it with the other person. You guys can share that conflict together and come to a solution, right? So it doesn't have to be this huge thing. And oftentimes it's a lot scarier in our head than it actually is when we talk about it, right? So we think it's going to be this huge blow up because, like you said, that's what it was like when we were a kid, right? Conflict equals danger, and so in your mind and in your body, it feels like this is going to be a dangerous situation. When the reality is, nothing in your life currently, for a lot of people, shows that it's going to be a dangerous situation, and so you can use that as evidence to be like, okay, we've addressed conflict before. I've been safe before. My partner is not going to blow up on me. I can trust that they will handle this well. Right. And there's a lot of, coping skills that you can do to regulate your anxiety and all of that. But yeah, you do need to talk about conflict because again, you don't want to just carry that yourself. Eventually you're going to get burnt out.
And I would be remiss to not talk about safety.
Hmm.
There are some situations that people are in that are very unsafe,
Yeah.
abusive, unhealthy, toxic, whatever word you want to use. And confronting them will be the worst decision.
Hmm.
So we are not speaking to those cases. That would be an exception. Please take care of yourself.
Yeah.
If you have a partner who will blow up and start throwing things or get in your face, start hitting you, or just even being verbally abusive and going below the belt, please take heed. take caution. This topic is very important to both of us. We were both in abusive marriages before this marriage and dealt with people who were very similar to what I just described. So, wanted to make sure that we throw that out there.
Yeah, for sure. So if that is you, if that does describe your situation, definitely seek out an individual therapist if you're able to, and they can walk you through how to work through this relationship, how to get out of the relationship, and how to keep yourself safe. But we know therapy is a privilege, right? So if you are not able to access therapy, there are a lot of local resources that you can use and seek out. We will include some in our show notes that are just general resources that you can use. So be sure to check those out if that is you. So there's a lot more that we can get into when it comes to communication. Maybe we'll have a part two at some point. But for now, we're going to jump into a Reddit story that you found regarding communication. So let's see what's going on the old Reddit.
The title is Struggling with Communication in My Relationship and Need Some Advice. I am a 24-year-old female. My boyfriend and I have been together for 2.5 years and we have a great relationship. But when it comes to communication, we could definitely improve. And I think it would lead to more feelings of relationship security for the both of us. He tends to become defensive and passive aggressive when we talk about sensitive issues. In the past, when I have hurt him unintentionally, being late, etc., he would make passive aggressive comments or become upset and defensive, sometimes isolating himself from me and shutting me out. Over time, this caused me to feel nervous about bringing up my feelings and needs, and I often wait until I'm overwhelmed with the anxiety of wanting to connect with him about these things. Obviously, communicating from that place is ineffective and creates a negative loop between the two of us. But I find it difficult not to feel anxiety even just thinking about communicating sensitive topics to him. I fear the disconnect and painful situation I know will inevitably happen from it. I tend to bring things up at very inappropriate times, 3 a.m., right after work, during life transitions. And it fills me with regret every time I do it. In the past, I have also brought up sensitive topics in highly emotionally charged ways and used accusatory and blame filled reactions. This is something I'm committed to improving. We haven't spoke since the other night when I tried to nervously initiate a sensitive conversation at 3 in the morning. It was something we have dealt with before, and I can tell his patience is running thin with the topic. I instantly wish that I could have waited to bring it up. I still need to dive deep and discover what it is I really want to communicate with him. And I now think it might be our communication as a whole. Here are some of the things I believe I need to work on my side of the relationship: emotional regulation, soothing the anxiety before I initiate the conversation; delivery, choosing the appropriate time to have the conversation; becoming more familiar about what my underlying needs are so that I can speak with clarity. If there is anything you think that would help me in this situation, it would be greatly appreciated. Also, if you have gone through something similar and found a way through with your partner, I would love to hear your story. Thank you.
Yeah, this is kind of a textbook communication issue with relationships, right? Where one person is trying to communicate their needs, which they have every right to do, but they may be doing it at a time that the other person isn't available to receive that. And it's being shut down, which makes them not want to communicate anymore. But then when they have, right, the other person doesn't know how to handle it. So, for one, I think she's right on track. Like, she needs to find appropriate times to communicate these heavy things. 3 in the morning is not the right time to communicate anything important, right? Because we're tired, right? Unless that's your schedule for some reason and you're just up at 2, 3 a.m. all the time. But more than likely they're not, right? So, like you mentioned before, have all of your kind of basic needs met, right? Like making sure you're well rested, making sure you're fed, making sure you're not tired or sleepy, right? Like all of these things are important to help not only regulate your emotions, but also to be able to receive things and to communicate effectively. So that's one thing. With that said, I think it's important to communicate and ask your partner, like, when is a good time to bring up difficult topics, right? So maybe right after dinner, that's the best time that I'm available to have hard conversations. Like, okay, cool. Or when is not a good time to bring up conversations, right? That way you know what times to avoid, right? So I think it's important to have those set in place. That way you know what to expect. But beyond that, I think this couple in general just needs to go to couples therapy, right? Just to work on their communication styles. And I feel like that's kind of a separate topic, but that's something a lot of people don't realize. Like, you don't have to be married to go to couples therapy, right? People think it's just for marriage. And it's like, no, like you can be dating and go to couples therapy and it's totally fine. Like, you don't have to be on the same insurance or anything like that. Like, they can kind of work all that out. So, couples therapy would be great for this couple. So, where do you think they should go with this?
So, first, she's 24 years old.
Yeah.
Her brain's not even fully developed. There's that. That being said, I love that she provided those few things at the end. So she does have some level of insight and awareness. Another thing that stood out, and full disclosure, I got a little triggered because it reminded me of some stuff I dealt with in
Yeah.
my abusive marriage. One of the things that stood out was his passive aggression. So she said that would come out when they would talk about sensitive issues. There was a time that she unintentionally hurt him because she was late, and that passive aggression or anger would come out and he would be defensive.
Mhm.
And then he would isolate himself and shut her out. That's a lot.
Yeah.
What's that about? Right? If
Mhm.
he were my client, I'd be like, hey, what's going on? Right? Maybe he's triggered
Mhm.
and that's why he's responding that way. So I do feel for her. And so with this particular section of it, I'm on her side. I am biased.
Mhm.
Hey, these aren't my clients.
Yeah.
So I could just speak candidly. That's a lot when you're just kind of living life. We make mistakes. Being late is not even a mistake. Sometimes it just happens.
Yeah.
And for someone to respond like that, what am I supposed to deal with that? So honestly, it does make sense why she would be hesitant to share stuff with him and why it just so happened to be this 3 a.m. thing.
Mhm.
Because, well, I'm really I can't ever talk to you during normal hours. And so maybe because of anxiety or other reasons, maybe they work the night shift, she's up and she wants to talk to him. Also, sometimes too, there's never a great time because a person like this guy may say, well, I don't want to do it during work because I'm busy. I don't want to do it after work because I want to rest. I don't want to do it on the weekends because I want to have fun.
Yeah.
When is a good time to talk? And then maybe you do schedule something like, well, I don't want to talk about it because I'm over that. And sometimes when you're like, okay, I finally figured out the best time, maybe it's Sunday afternoon. There's no work, there's no this or no that. And a person may say, okay, well, that situation is something that I haven't even thought about, or they can gaslight you, which is that psychological manipulation, making you question your own sanity.
Yeah.
You're overreacting. So, personally, with this Reddit story, because I'm triggered, I can't really give an objective response because I'm seeing myself so much through her
Yeah.
that I'm already in it. I'm in deep. So that's kind of the main things that I have to say about this.
Yeah.
But what else do you have to say?
Yeah, and I see all that too. One thing that I would give a little pushback on, maybe not pushback, but just a different perspective. She said that she didn't intentionally hurt him by being late. So we don't know what she was late for. Like maybe it was like graduation or something really important for him. And, intention doesn't override impact. So he could be hurt for a legitimate reason. Now, his reaction to that hurt is not okay. Like you can't just stonewall your partner and just shut them out. Right. So I think it's important for her to communicate and him to communicate like what was happening there. Like she can just communicate like, "Hey, I noticed that you were upset. Can you tell me what was going on?" Right? And he would need to be fully aware of what he was upset about, not just being late because that's a crazy reaction to have to someone just being late for something. So I do agree. I think there maybe was some childhood stuff happening that he just didn't feel important, he didn't feel valued or whatever was happening. But again, that doesn't excuse how he reacted, right? So again, intention doesn't override impact, and we have to be able to manage our emotions when we are triggered in whatever way. So all that is true, and I think it's important again, both of them to communicate. Like he's clearly going through things and doesn't know how to communicate what he's going through, and he's just kind of acting out of that. And she's scared. She's walking on eggshells. And I can imagine if she tries to communicate that, he's probably going to get defensive. 'Cause that's what he always does, or that's what he has done historically, according to her. So yeah, I think having a time when they're both calm and there's nothing really going on, right? Now, to your point, if there is a difficult conversation that needs to happen, again, ideally, you want to do that when things are calm. But I've seen it happen too, where when you're calm and you bring up a tough conversation, this person can be like, "We were just having a good time. Why do you want to mess up the vibes?" Right? It's like, well, we got to have this conversation at some point, and I don't want to have it when we're already angry because that's just going to make things worse. So, I think it's important to schedule something and stick to it.
Yeah, we talked about this before. Maybe you got to have this conversation out of the house, whether it's at a coffee shop or it's at a park. If it's in public, hopefully that'll help. So you guys are going to be yelling at each other. You can grab a coffee or a treat or just get some fresh air. Sometimes even talking about it in the car. Now you got to be safe, of course, but
Hmm.
sometimes not looking at each other is helpful.
Yeah.
Or writing letters, kind of old fashioned way, kind of comparable to texting, but it's just a moment where each person could sit down, reflect, write everything out. And then when you're ready, you give that letter to your partner and you just go back and forth and kind of treat it like, oh, you've got mail,
Hmm.
especially if you live together. If you don't, you can figure out a way to kind of hand the person the letter. But
Yeah.
communicating is a part of life, it's a
It
part
is.
of adulting. As much as some of us don't want to do it, we gotta do it. There's no way you can be in a successful relationship without communicating. Because there are
Yeah.
some people who are like, "We don't need to talk about anything. It's just
Yeah.
we're just living off of vibes." And it's like, no, not a thing.
Yeah.
You do have to communicate. So it's like, how can we do this well? Maybe you put a timer on it, and for 10 minutes, you guys talk about it, and then that's it. If
Hmm.
you can only have 10-minute conversations at a time, cool. Maybe you gotta reward yourself. Okay, we're gonna have this really hard conversation that we both don't want to have, but we're gonna do it. Afterwards, we're gonna go bowling.
Yeah.
We're gonna get ice cream, or we're gonna watch our favorite movie. Kind of gamify it. Just
Hmm.
think outside of the box.
Yeah, and it's important. I think those are really great ideas, and I think it's important to also, if it's going to be a really difficult conversation, to preface it to be like, "Hey, I just want you to know I do love you and I care about this relationship. That's why I want to have this conversation, right? Instead of it just jumping right in because the person, especially if they have a history of getting defensive, right? If you know it's going to happen, just kind of let the guard down a little bit. Just like, hey, I love you, things are going to be okay. I don't want to break up or anything. There are just some things I want to talk about to help things out. Right. I know that's a lot, but sometimes it could be important to have that kind of buffer or preface there just to kind of set the tone for the conversation.
And the last thing that I want to mention is this whole notion of, well, I just don't know what to say. I don't have the
Hmm.
language for it. Be on the lookout for some songs that you've been listening to that resonate with you, or maybe something on TV.
Hmm.
I know that's happened with us a lot,
Yeah.
where we'll be watching something and I'll just pause. I'm like, oh, that's exactly how I feel. Like
Hmm.
that person communicated it perfectly. That could be really helpful,
Hmm.
especially if you guys are both watching something together, because your partner's seeing it too.
Yeah.
But with music, like let's say you're listening to a song and it just communicates your thoughts and your feelings perfectly. Send that song to your partner and tell them,
Hmm.
hey, you know the thing I kind of have been struggling to talk to you about? This song says it all. Or, hey, I haven't told you that I've been struggling with this, but I have. Now that I'm aware of it, I realize I haven't talked to you because I really don't know what to say, but this song perfectly explains everything. If you've never communicated it to the person, remind the person of what the thing is, have them listen to it so they could be like, oh,
Hmm.
gotcha. I know some therapists actually do that with their clients.
Yeah.
They're like, hey, what's going on? And they can't really express whatever it is, and they're like, hey, tell me what you've been listening to. Hey, tell
Hmm.
me what you've been watching. Like, what have you connected with? What's been resonating with you? And it's so beautiful how everything kind of all connects. Maybe you've
Yeah.
been listening to a lot of sad music recently, but haven't communicated that to your therapist.
Hmm.
It's like, oh, some Lana Del Rey. Okay, super helpful.
Yeah.
So again, kind of thinking outside the box, just kind of being creative.
Yeah, and I was gonna say that if you do tend to be a little bit more creative, having like an art project that you do, like this is going to represent how I'm feeling, right? If it's a lot of like dark colors and things like that, that maybe communicates something, right? Or if it's a lot of bright and sunny colors, that communicates something differently, right? Or taking a page out of kind of like narratives or therapy. If your life was a book, what chapter would you be in right now, right? Or like who's the main character? What's the conflict? What's the resolution going to be, right? All these things that like just using metaphor to help people process emotions and process all of that. Sometimes people's brains just tend to work better with metaphor than literal conversations. So you just have to know yourself and know your partner and see what's going to communicate to you guys the best.
That concludes today's episode. Thank you guys, as always, for tuning in. We really appreciate it. As much as we love these Reddit relationship dilemmas, we would love, love, love to answer your specific relationship dilemma. So please be sure to email us. It will all be anonymous. You don't have to worry about us saying your name. You can email us at semidaysquad@gmail.com. Semide is our last name. That's SEMIDEY squad@gmail.com. And please be sure to send this episode to someone that you think could benefit from it. Also, like, comment, share, subscribe, all the things. We will check you guys out in our next episode. Bye.
Later.